I've got a very special Q&A this month, and what I'm doing is what's called an AMA, or Ask Me Anything. So I've got some questions here that are kind of out of left field and all sorts of different things. So let's get right into them.
This video is brought to you by Model Railroad Academy. Model Railroad Academy is your online resource for model railroad instructions, ideas, and information, with loads of tutorials and articles for model railroaders of every skill level. One of my personal favorites is Alan Keller's Great Model Railroads series. It is just so much fun to look at all of these different model railroads from all of these different great model railroaders and just get inspiration from those. Plus, you can find tutorials on everything from bench work to electronics to scenery, all sorts of things there. The first 1,000 people to sign up at the link in the description below will get a full year of premium membership to Model Railroad Academy for $1.49.
Hey everybody, my name's Jimmy. Welcome to Coffee and Trains. Today I'm drinking some French roast coffee. If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and be featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your name pop up on an episode of Coffee and Trains. Also, this is the monthly Q&A, and I take questions from the previous month that were put in the comments, and I answer them best I can. This is a special one. This is an Ask Me Anything. So if you want to have your questions answered for next month's Q&A, you can put those in the comments below, and who knows, you might see those pop up. Cheers, guys. Farrell Carril Chicago asked, if I had a choice, would I rather acquire a pot of gold to buy trains or a pot of trains? Well, it depends on how big the pots are. If I'm getting a far bigger pot that holds a lot more trains, or about the same that I could buy of the trains of gold, I have to think about it. But I think I'm pretty much going to say a pot of gold to buy trains, because I can just sell the gold and buy the trains. Moliv asked, what do I think of Soundtrack's Bluenami decoders? I think that they are a great option, and one cool thing that you can do with them is that they're Bluetooth, and you don't necessarily need a DCC system to make them operate. You can use the Bluenami app, and all you have to do is have constant power to the track going. It's kind of like how in O-Scale, where you just turn the power on to the track and then you have remote control. It's a very similar system to that. So Bluenami is a great option if you're looking to stay DC, but you want to convert some of your locomotives to DCC. So it's just a really great option for that. And I'll be interested to see, I think they're working on potentially trying to get it into N-Scale, but that's going to be a fairly difficult task. So hopefully they can get that into N-Scale. Battleship Orion says that they have a goal of obtaining 40 general use freight cars, nothing that can haul or coal, auto racks, intermodal, any of those very specific cars that are for unit trains and things like that. So they asked, what's a good ratio between box cars, hopper cars, gondolas, and tank cars? So what I would do is I would probably buy an even amount of each. So if you're getting 40, either 8 of 5 different types or 5 of 8 different types, look for ones with different road names and road numbers and things like that. I really think that having about 5 box cars, 5 gondolas, 5 tank cars, 5 flat cars, and then let's say 5 covered hopper cars. Covered hopper cars are another good utility car. They cover a bunch of different industries. You can put covered hoppers just about anywhere. And then maybe a few others, like I think you said you also were looking at flat cars, but that's what I would do, is just do either 5 of 8 different types or 8 of 5 different types. Another thing to think about is if you have an even number, you can always have half of them on the layout and half of them off the layout for switching. Thomas L. Durbin asks, is there a way to know which unit, specifically he's asking about the CSX heritage units, will be running a route in order to catch it at a crossing? So if we're talking about the heritage unit, there's no way to really track them live where they are going. That's probably has some security issues in it, but there is a website called heritageunit.com, and basically what it does is people post the sightings that they've seen, and what they do is they post what they saw, where it was, and what direction it was going. This is a nationwide map, and it is something that is actually a pretty good resource, and you can probably see the rough area of where a heritage unit is, so you can probably get an idea of what crossing to wait for it, and it updates regularly, so definitely a cool resource. Abraham Stuff asks, automatic or manual Kato switches? So I kind of go with a mix of them. It really depends. A lot of times if I have a mainline switch that I'm going to need to do a little bit more work with for signaling and things like that, I will typically try to do an automatic, or at least an automatic signal throw. And for sidings where there's multiple sidings, or you have a staging yard or it's a regular yard, I will do manual. So it really just depends on the application. So I kind of do a mix of what I do. Abraham Stuff also asked about adding lights to an in-scale layout. Now, if you're looking to add detail, light is really a great way to make a layout come alive. I have a few already set up in my rural hall scene, and I plan on adding some more. Right now, just to put in general LEDs and things like that, I'm using the diorama hubs and I'm plugging them in. They have those JST connectors, and they're pretty easy to wire up. They have like 10 connections per. I'll put a link in the description below for that. And also Woodland Scenics Just Plug lights will plug into these. So another option if you're looking to get a lot of small lights in places is fiber optics. Like the Dwarven system that's made by trains.com. So that is a couple of options that you have right there. But yeah, no problem doing lights. You can have some fun with lights in N-scale. JimTrack3786 asked, does anyone make a good New York Central Niagara plastic model in HO scale? Well, I don't know about fully plastic or anything, but I know two companies that have made them, and that is Bachman and Broadway Limited. So those are going to be the places to check out. I've never personally used those locomotives, and they're not new. They don't currently make them, so you have to find it on the used market. But that is the ones that I see right now that are out there. So I can't give an accurate opinion on them because I don't have them or I've never used them. Mapit07 says that they're interested in adding ambient sound to various areas of their layout. Have I ever done this? I have not, but I've been looking into this. At first I was thinking Arduinos and things like that, but I've also found these little SD card players that you can find on Amazon and different places, and I think this might be an easier option. I think the Arduino you can get a little bit more control, but this looks like something that'd be fairly easy to implement, where you could just get it and sit under a building or hide the board or something like that, or even put the board underneath and run the speaker up to the layout and hide it there. So that's what I am looking at right now. I'm probably going to implement that in a few places. Salvatore Natale says that they know that I work in video production, which I still do. That's my full-time job. And wanted to see if I had a website or any of my video work or what kind of camera gear that I use to do YouTube videos. Well, yes, I am a full-time video producer. I don't like to say where I work. I know some of my viewers know where I work right now, but I have worked at the local, regional, and national level. I've done all sorts of cool things. I've done the Super Bowl. I have done a lot of NASCAR races. I've done a lot of local sports, news, commercial production, long-form production, a lot of different things. And right now, so the camera that I use right now for YouTube is the Sony ZV-E10, and it probably right now is the best like YouTube vlogging camera out there. Now, at my day job, I am a producer, and so I do the producing and the editing. So I basically set up the shoots, and I'll handle like asking any questions for interviews, and I do the editing. But I also will shoot sometimes, and the cameras that we have at work are, we just got a couple of the new Canon C400s. Those are really nice cameras. We have some Canon C70s, and we have a Sony a7S III, and plus we have a couple of older Sony, or not Sony, but Panasonic VariCam LTs. And we have a lot of good glass. We have the Canon Cinema glass. We have some anamorphic lenses, and we also have some Fujinon lenses and things like that. So that's what I do. In terms of work, you can email me and I'll show you, because it's a dead giveaway of where I work. So I can show you what I do. But if you work in the TV industry, know that I was there too. So if you ever just want to talk about that, because us TV people, we got some stories. One Rich Brooks says that they saw the brick and mortar building they see over my right shoulder. So that would have been this one. This is probably on the old layout, and he was asking what the kit was. Well, those are actually 3D printed, and I have them available to my patrons to download, but those are ones that I actually custom did. James Dieringer 3674 says that they grew up in a small town with a Penn Central spur, and is there any way to find out which engines were used on this spur, by what type and road number? So where I'd start is actually online. I would look at railpictures.net and start looking for Penn Central engines, and then look for your location. And I try to remember roughly what the locomotive was, and then see if you can dive deeper into it and find the road number in those photos. Because if you can find a picture in a town that's near you that you know is on the spur at the right time, then you can probably assume that that was one of the locomotives that you saw. That's actually what I have done. on several occasions for researching, finding older pictures of Southern 2601, my favorite diesel. And that's what I have done. So, and you said you want to use it as your yard switcher. So like railpictures.net, Google, there's also those photo history books. I have a couple of those that I use for research. That's what I would do. Jantrib0324 says they're curious if I would ever consider getting a live steam locomotive like a 5-inch gauge or a 7¼ inch gauge, and which one would I get and what would I want? So first of all, I think this is something that I would always want, and I'm going to have to put it off as a project for later. I'd want to get into a house I'm planning on to be in for a really long time, which I don't know with this house that I am. Could be, it could not be. The big thing that I would want would be I'd probably start off with a small switcher diesel, actually, just to get my feet wet and things like that. Then I'd probably want to step up to something like an AccuCraft Jeep 38, get into that 7¼ inch. And then probably I really like small British steam engines like Porters and things like that. And that's probably what I'd go for. I'd also like a Forney. That'd be another one that I would really like. Just some of those. That's what I would really be looking at. But it's something that definitely interests me. I'm probably going to pick up another live steam locomotive for the Garden Railroad at some point. And show you guys that, of course. Duke Drew asked, was I on a green screen on my last one? Looks kind of weird. Yes, I was. I had just torn down my layout and I needed to do the transition to this space down here. So I did a green screen for a few episodes. Nothing crazy, but yes, I was on a green screen. Matt Lawson 7779 asks, how often should you run a locomotive to keep it working properly? He said no, machines tend to freeze up if not operated once in a while. I try to run all of my locomotives at least once a quarter. I know for some people that have hundreds of them, that can be difficult. But one thing you can also do is you can just get some running rails, the wheels that you can run your trains on, and you can also do that if you don't want to sit them on your layout and run them all the time. I'm probably teetering on the edge of having too many locomotives to have the time to run them all through, but I like running them about making sure I get all of them on the track about once a quarter. Jason Minier 6782 asks, what kind of car do I drive and what is your dream vehicle? I drive a Honda CR-V, and my dream vehicle, see, I don't know right now. I don't really have one that like tickles my fancy. I definitely want some kind of truck, but I have a really long commute, and what I'm kind of interested in is the trucks that are coming out from like Ram, and then the new Scout that was announced that are electric but are plug-in hybrid. They have a gas engine to extend their range. So those are kind of what I'm interested in. I also really like the Rivian. That's one that I really like. If I'm getting an electric truck right now, I would want a Rivian. But I think just a good pickup truck right now is my dream vehicle. But again, none of them fits what I want perfectly right now. The Steam Train Man asks, I'm making an N-scale Polar Express, but I do not know how to make the ice on the engine and cars. Can you help? Well, if you just want to make the snow and ice, one thing that I would do is I would take baking soda and white paint and mix them into a paste, and that can put like kind of the snow cake on there. You can also use glue. You can use like hot glue maybe, things that are going to give you some icicles and things like that, and kind of just tease it and play with it and then put it on there. You don't want to do it directly on there. You're going to want to kind of make it and then put it on there. Just something that you can carve up. You can also use some glues on wax paper so that you can easily get them off. Just things like that. Jimmy Productions asks if I'm going to go to the National T-Track show in Chattanooga where they're going to have the record layout. I would love to go, and I'm planning on it right now. I haven't made any official plans, but that is going to be about the closest that an NMRA show is going to be to me. So I am definitely planning to go to 2026. That's right now is my goal, is to get to the 2026 NMRA show. Orlando Railfan Productions asks, what is your favorite locomotive in your collection and why? So my favorite locomotive overall is my Broadway Limited Y6B. Love that locomotive. That just hands down is my favorite. Bees Railway asks, what is my favorite Australian locomotive? And then they also ask why N-scale, even though you get less detailed locomotives. So to answer that first question, for older Australian railroads, I don't really have a specific favorite. What I do love is they're kind of a mishmash between European and North American locomotives. There's a lot of things that are like, hey, that kind of looks like an F unit, or hey, that definitely looks like something from Europe. So that's what I really like that. But if you're looking at some of the newer favorites, I definitely have to say the AC 6000. And why do I say that? Because it pulled the longest and heaviest train that has been pulled. I think it's the world record that it pulled was the heaviest train that was pulled. It was one of those world records, but they pulled that full of iron. So that is the reason that's my modern favorite, because it is the world record holder.
So I completely spaced out and forgot to answer the N-scale question that he asked. The reason I like N-scale is because I like larger, more expansive scenery, and I like running longer trains, and I just don't have that much space to do that in HO scale, which is really why I like N-scale.
James Shuki 2416 asks, what do you like to show off on your layout when friends and family come to see it? Well, what I like to do typically is I like to have usually one of my more impressive steam engines on there. Sometimes I'll put like the Kato Big Boy on there. That's usually one that gets a lot of wows, and it runs like a Swiss watch, so you don't really have to worry about it when you're sitting on there. And I'll also run some of my Scale Trains diesels and some of my Broadway Limited diesels on there as well. Like I'll run my Broadway Limited F units, and I'll run my Scale Trains C39-8s. I really like those, and I still can't figure out why, but I really like those. So that's typically what I'll run, and I'll just have them in a continuous loop. When I have this one done, I'll actually be able to run 3 separate trains at the same time. Another thing I'll also do is I'll usually grab one of the Kato passenger sets. A lot of times I'll do like the Silver Streak. That's another one that's really popular that I will run that gets a lot of attention. East Lansing Rail Fan asks, what's your favorite railroad of all 3 classes? So let's preface this. In the past, it was a tie between Southern Railway and New York Central. So those are my favorite fallen flags. My favorite railroad of all 3 classes, that's a tough one. I think I'm going to have to go with what I'm basing my railroad off of here, which is the Yadkin Valley Railroad. It's a small Class 3 railroad, but it really operates like a big one, and it does a lot of cool stuff, and it travels through some beautiful countryside. Timebag Shane, that's an interesting name. Have you tried Broadway Limited Stealth with ESU installed? The comparison between Paragon 4 and Stealth with Loc Sound is night and day. So I have not tried that because Broadway Limited has Next 18. I actually do really like soundtracks, and that's a big thing with me, is I really do love soundtracks. So being able to put Next 18 soundtracks decoders into Broadway Limited Stealth units is really what I do. But I could always pick up a Next 18 ESU decoder and give it a shot. The bottom line is I don't think that Broadway Limited Paragon 4 is bad by any means. I think it's quite good. So it's really just beauty is in the eye of the beholder, or case in the ear of the beholder. So, but it's definitely something I'll have to try at some point, getting an ESU decoder. But right now, I typically stick soundtracks decoders in there. Flagman515 asks, whatever happened to my HO switching layout? Well, here's the thing. So with my project railroads, for the most part, I end up stripping them for parts after I've built them. Part of the enjoyment of the hobby that I get is building the layouts. I don't just have them stored somewhere away. I'm planning on building another larger HO scale layout that should be more permanent, but I wanted to use as much of the stuff and recycle it. So typically I will build the layouts and get all the work and everything I need to get done, get all the video and everything I get done out of them, and then I'll strip them for parts. And this is also because I don't have enough room to have all of these project railroads in here. So I usually just build them to show you how to do them, and I don't mind, spending the extra money to do that, because part of me doing this channel is showing you guys how to do stuff, showing different people how to do different techniques, and helping people learn in the hobby. So that layout no longer exists, but I have all the parts, and they're going to go into my next HO scale layout. BNSF fan 6584 said, would you be able to go on a rail fanning trip to Washington State? I absolutely want to go on a rail fanning trip to Washington State. I love the Cascades. I want to see trains running through there, and I also want to see trains running through eastern Washington and eastern Oregon and places like that. I think that's really pretty. One of the trains I want to ride on my bucket list is the Empire Builder. So yes, I do want to go on a trip to Washington State for rail fanning. Andrews RR asks, what's the best company that makes the best quality in-scale train cars? So that's a tough question, because there's not really any bad ones right now. The best one I'd say probably overall is micro trains, and that's just because that is their bread and butter, and that is what they do, and I would expect them to be the best. But that doesn't mean Atlas is perfectly fine. I've got plenty of Atlas on here. The Athearn cars I have on here that run perfectly fine. The Intermountain cars I have on here that run perfectly fine. The Kato cars I have are perfectly fine. The Scale Trains cars I have are perfectly fine. Who else makes cars? Trainworks is another one that I really like. I wish they had a few more variety of cars, but I would say overall probably the best that you're going to hit with quality is going to be micro trains. That's going to be your overall best quality. Delightful Trains asks, what is my budget for new HO and N-scale model trains? So for DCC ready, what I will do is I typically like to go about 150, 160 and below. Basically the rivet counter level DCC ready and below. I don't like to go above that for the most part for DCC ready. For DCC equipped, it really depends on the locomotive. You know, most of the times I try to stay under 300 and I wait for stuff to go on sale. But if it's something like the Kato Big Boy with DCC and sound, I'll just save up for it. So for the most part, for DCC ready, I try to stay at about 150, 160 and under. And for DCC and sound, I typically will try to do less than 300, occasionally go a little bit over 300. David Maddox asks, would I ever consider getting British locomotives for your layout just for fun? Absolutely. Does Thomas count? I'm just kidding. But I would absolutely. I love British locomotives. I think they have a real sense of style with them, especially the classic steamers. A lot of elegance, a lot of really pretty lines with British steamers. And I also love the modern diesels as well, especially the switchers, or the shunters, sorry. But yes, I would absolutely consider getting British locomotives for my layout. You may see them soon, who knows? Marshall's Trains asks, what is a good tip on doing plants and shrubs around the layout, and what do I use to make hills? So I do a couple of different things with this. So first of all, for the plants and shrubs, what I typically like to do is I like to build kind of like a little cluster around them, and for trees, and then I'll kind of build out from that, and I'll stuff little ground cover and things like that. I also like, for just like unkempt grass, I just like to sprinkle like the coarsest scenic turf I can get. That's what I'll do, and I sprinkle that, and that usually works out pretty well. For specific plants, I just kind of like just use my eyes and I let it flow. Very just like I look at like ways that it would flow, whether I have little cracks or valleys or things like that, and where it would go. So really it's just about using your eye. But I like to, when I'm building like a wooded area, build a big cluster in the middle and kind of have it sort of flow slowly out. And I also like things like super trees, and I like woodland scenic forest canopies. Those are really good, realistic looking trees. But the unkempt shrubbery, I found the best results are really just using that coarse turf and using a lot of it. So that was fun, some random questions in there for the AMA. If you would like to ask me questions for next month, you can leave that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your question pop up. I do ask to try to get those questions in within the first week of this video getting out, so that I can get this recorded and get that back to you, because I'll get a lot of questions. I had way more than I could get to in one video for this month, so sorry if I missed your question. If I missed your question, just try asking it again, and I will do my best to get to it. In the meantime, check out some of these model railroad businesses.
Model Railway Backshop is a great place if you're looking for a quality paint job for your old or new brass model locomotive. If you're looking to get that brass model weathered, you can get that done too. Right now, you can get 10% off any brass model painting and weathering job by using the promo code NMRA10. Check them out at modelrailwaybackshop.com. Klondike's is a family-owned business that makes N-scale T-track modules, mini diorama kits, and N-scale display stands right here in the US. You've seen me feature many of their modules right here on this channel. Check them out at the link in the description.
If you'd like to check out some of the tutorials that I've done that I may have mentioned in this, or some different videos like this, I'll have those right here. Big thanks to Model Railroad Academy for sponsoring this video and sponsoring Traintoberfest all this month. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.